Hello all, good evening. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can hear me right. Okay. So now will today's topic will be the business expenses. So we have seen business income and when we will consider it as income, and also we have seen the method of accountings, and in case of rent and in case of goods, in case of service, how we will treat. So everything we have seen, right, in the rental income unit 3. So today we'll see the expenses. So generally for business, only two factors. So that will determine the profit of the business. So on the profit, we need to pay the taxes. So we need to see the business incomes and we need to see the business expenses. So business expenses generally, if any person is running a business, then what type of expenses usually a person will spend towards the business. So the business can pay for in general like rent. So the rent is one of the expenses, right? So rent expenses, and also business can pay salaries uh, to the employees or salaries, and also office supplies. And what type of expenses when a business generally will pay apart from these? Travel, for traveling, yes, and also car related expenses, and any advertisement expenses, contract labor expenses. So generally, these are the couple of expenses generally business will pay. Now, okay, so business expenses we can claim as an expenses. So for this, let's say there is a main rule. So not every business expenses is deductible. Like let's say there is a business. So business is running, business is having some income. Let's say the business is providing some services. So the services around for 2025 $100,000 income, and also the business is having some expenses. So expenses are around for rent and for salaries, and also the business is paying some expense for equipments, and business paid some paid to acquire kind of land. And so these are the expenses. So can we claim all these expenses like rent around $12,000, and salaries $8,000, and equipment which is $200,000, and land which is land and building. So land and building around $320,000. Now, can we claim all the expenses? So business income 100 minus expenses. So can we claim all these expenses? So generally, no, right? Because we need to see there is a main rule. So not all business expenses is deductible immediately. So this is now we are talking about 2025. So, okay, it is expenses we can claim, but not immediately. So, few expenses which we cannot claim immediately, and few expenses which we can claim immediately. For that, we need to see the main tax rule. So, main rule, as per main rule, so first one, we need to see whether which is immediate expenses, immediate deduction. So, to claim immediate deduction, we have to see the expenses nature, whether it is small or whether it is short term, whether it is small expenses or it is short term expenses. If yes, then we can claim as an expenses immediately in the same tax year. So first one, if you can see here, rent. Okay, so the rent is small or which is short term. So rent is not small amount, but yeah, so this is for short term means. So here it should be the expenses should be for expenses for less than or equal to 365 days. So then we will consider the expenses category as short term. So short term, it should be for short term. So now this rent is small expenses or short term expenses, guys. So rent we usually will pay for 1 year only. The same year only we will pay the expenses. Okay, we can claim as an expenses. Salary. So this is not a small, but this is for 1 year, less than or equal to 1 year. So we can claim immediately. Equipment. So is it small? No. can we claim immediately? So this is for only 1 year. So equipment generally, like let's say 5 years. So can we claim immediately? No, because it is not fitting into the case, the category one, which is immediate deduction cases. So if it is not immediate deduction, then we can claim, we have to capitalize the expenses. So we have to capitalize the expenses. Capitalized expenses. So what is capitalized expenses? With this, can you tell me? So it is opposite. So short term and small amount. So here, which is large amount and also large and many years. So here, which is small amount, either it can be small or it can be short term, then we will claim as an expenses immediately in the same tax year. And if the amount is large or it is for many years, large or it is for many years, then we will capitalize. So instead of claiming expenses immediately, we will claim as an expenses over the period of the life. So let's say here the equipment life for 5 years. So can we claim $200,000 expenses immediately? No, because we are using the equipment for 5 years, right? So which means we can claim 200,000 divided by 5 years. So each year we can claim 40,000 as an expenses. So this we call it as depreciation. This we call it as depreciation. So yeah, in this way we can capitalize. So if you are capitalizing, generally that we will claim as a depreciation, right? Getting, guys?
Yes.
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 Yes. And also if the expenses are capitalized, like if it is capitalized expenses, so these are not deductible fully in 1 year. So these are not deducted in fully in 1 year. So which means we can claim as an expenses, but not immediately, but we can claim in over the period of the life of the asset. So slowly we will claim as an expenses through either, so if it is capitalized expenses, so that then we will claim as an expenses through the depreciation or amortization or depletion. So again, the treatment will be the same. So depreciation or amortization or depletion. So all are the treatment is same, but we will use different category. Uh, if it is natural resources, then we will use depletion, and if it is intangible, then amortization. And other than like tangible and personal tangible property cases, we will use depreciation. So, but the treatment will be the same, but some areas the treatment might be different. But yeah, so we will use either depreciation or amortization or depletion based on the asset category, right? Let's say there is an example for you. So there is one office expenses, and also there is one hydraulic mission, so value which is $475,000. So which one, based on these two expenses, which you will claim? So the first one, can we claim immediately or we have to capitalize? First one, can we claim immediately or we will capitalize and we will claim over the period? Guys?
We can claim immediately. We can claim
Sorry?
immediately.
We can
We
claim
can claim immediately.
immediately because because
It is small amounts.
okay, small and also
Short term.
short term, small and also which is short term. So if it is short term, then we can claim immediately. And second one, so we will claim immediately or we will capitalize?
We'll capitalize it.
Capitalize because
It's an asset. We can use for many years.
okay, is it okay, fine. But what exactly the reason here? So which is for this we will use in the business for many years. right? So machinery, if any person, if any business is purchasing machinery, so they will use not, they will use the machinery for long years. So they will not use in the same with, the life of the asset will be more than 1 year, so which is many years, and also this is huge, so this is not large amount. That's the reason we will claim it as, we will consider it as capitalized expenses. So we will claim over the period of the asset, right? So small items used quickly, then deduct now. Big assets used for many years, then deduct over time. Okay, so this is basic rule. And now next one, deductible business expenses. Okay, so we understand. So there are two types. So what are the expenses we generally can claim as an expenses? So which are deductible expenses? Deductible business expenses. So we have classified whether it is short term, whether it is, immediate expenses or capitalization. But can we claim all the expenses? So no. So which should be deductible business expenses. So for a business, expenses to be deductible, so it must be first one, ordinary expenses. So ordinary means which are common, which are very common, and which are accepted in the business. So let's say there is one restaurant. There is a restaurant purchased one airplane, one one ship. So for restaurant, ship is mandatory. So is it ordinary? No. Which is seems to be, which is not ordinary, right? Because restaurant, what exactly restaurants will purchase? So restaurant cases generally, food items, food related items they will purchase. So this is ordinary. Ship, which seems to be, which is not ordinary, right? So we cannot claim the other than ordinary expenses in the business. So to claim as expenses, so that should be ordinary. The first one in the business expenses, we need to understand the business expenses must be ordinary expenses. Like let's say there is a CP, there is an enrolled agent, uh, enrolled agent purchased a tax software, purchased a tax software. So will is it ordinary? Yes, which is ordinary, which is common, and which is accepted in the business. So general expenses we can claim as an expenses in the business. So this is ordinary. And next one, necessary. So what is necessary? In general language, necessary means without which so the expenses should be, absolutely required. So which is in general term, right? So which is absolutely required. So but which is indispensable. So without which we cannot run the business. So those kind of expenses are necessary. But for tax purpose, necessary doesn't mean, just 1 second. Sorry. So necessary generally means which is absolutely required, which is indispensable. But for tax purpose, necessary doesn't mean it, it is absolutely required. So even though let's say necessary here means, so for tax purpose, it should be helpful. So it should be helpful for the business. So, and also it should be appropriate. Can say which are necessary. So let's say we'll go with one example. So again, the same example. EA purchased a tax software. So is it ordinary? Yes, which is ordinary. Is it necessary? Yes, this will help preparing in tax return. So this is fine. So here tax software which is ordinary, yes. So we, because this is in general, so the business to run the business, so they will buy the tax software. And also, what about necessary? Is it necessary? So to run the business, yes, it is, which is necessary. So this we can claim as an expenses, and the same EA paying some expenses for advertisement, advertising purpose. So now can, so first think about ordinary. So is it ordinary? Yes, which is ordinary, which is general expenses. Every business, advertisement is important, right? So this is ordinary, okay. And is it necessary? Without which can we run the business? Yes. Without advertisement also we can run the business, but the advertisement will be helpful, right? So that's the reason here necessary, that is the general meaning, which is important, which is indispensable. But here is the case, so for tax purpose, necessary, that doesn't mean which is mandatory. So if even if it is helpful for the business, so yes, so we will consider it as necessary, and the business expenses should be ordinary and necessary. Then we can claim as an expenses in the tax return, right? Yes, guys? No?
Yes.
Yes, right. So ordinary for this purpose, which should be helpful. So it should not be indispensable. So in this case, we can claim as an expenses. So next one, uh, personal and living expenses. Personal and living expenses. So what is the business to claim as an expenses? So those should not be the personal and those should not be living expenses. So what is personal expenses? So personal expense generally. So can we claim personal expenses in the business? So no. So personal expenses are not allowed in the business. We cannot claim as an expenses in the business because those are taxpayer personal expenses, right? So personal expenses we will not allow, we will not claim in the tax return. So what are those type of, let's say there is an example. uh, if you see in the tax return, taxpayer is providing any groceries per home. So can we claim as an expenses, as a business expenses? So no, because this is personal expenses, right? So personal expenses are not allowed. Like let's say family rent. So taxpayer have provided family rent and saying these are business expenses. So can we claim? Obviously, no, we cannot claim. Our personal clothes. So personal plus. So can we claim these expenses in the business? No, because these are the personal expenses we cannot claim. So personal and living expenses are not allowed in the business. So this is okay. And what if the expenses can be mixed expenses? Mixed expenses means some part related to personal and some part related to business. So in this case, so can we allow? So generally, if it is personal expenses, which is not allowed, and business expenses, which is allowed. But here is the case, which is mixed expenses, which includes personal portion and which includes business portion. So can we reject? Can we reject the whole amount? So mixed
No.
expenses means some expenses are partly personal and some are partly business. So in this case, in this case, we won't reject the whole expenses. Instead, we can split the expenses, and only business portion is allowed. Only business portion only business portion is deductible. So how we can come to know? So for this generally, so if it is mixed expenses, we have some categories. So based on this, we can claim. Let's say home office expenses. So this is best example for mixed expenses. Home office. So again, we will discuss. So we have separate form for this 8829. But for now, let's say uh, taxpayer running business in the home itself. Okay, so total home SFT, home SQFT, which is around 2000 SQFT, and also business SQFT around 300 square feet. Now mixed expenses means we cannot split the total expenses, right? So in that case, generally we will see the business percentage here. So let's say for the home, for the total home, taxpayer paid rent, and also for the total home, taxpayer paid utilities. So in this case, like let's say rent $12,000 and utilities $3,000. So this is the total expenses, which is mixed expenses, which includes business portion and also which includes the personal portion. So can we claim or we cannot claim? Generally, we can claim only business portion. So how we will come to know how much is business portion? So for this, we have the square foots. So SQFT. So based on this, we can claim. So which is 300 SQFT for business, out of 2000 we are using 300, which means 15% is. So out of total expenses, 15% is related to the business. So which means in the rent case here, so 12,000 total and business portion 15%, which is 1800. So here 3,000 total expenses utilities and 15% which is business portion. So in this way we can claim as an expenses, and here the personal portion will be the remaining expenses will be the personal portion. The personal expenses are not allowed, right? So this is personal expenses. So the personal portion is not allowed. Business portion, yes, which is allowed. For this, we have to see, we have to use we have to calculate the business percentage. So here in this case, we need to calculate business business percentage. We need to calculate. If we have the business percentage, then we can apply the percentage directly on the total expenses. So in this way, we can claim the personal, I mean mixed expenses cases. Okay. And for this, so to claim in this way, we have couple of conditions. The first condition, which is very important in case of home office rule, home office category. So to claim like this, we need to follow, we should, important rules we have, important. So the first important rule, which if let's say taxpayer is using part of his home for a business purpose occasionally, so then it is non-rental. So taxpayer should use this business business square foot regular basis, regularly. So if yes, then we can claim. So if it is occasionally, then it is not allowed. So second one, which is exclusively. What is exclusively? Let's say total 2000 SQFT, right? So this is 2000 SQFT. For example, out of this only this portions. So this portion is taxpayer kept for business purpose. So in this space, no one will use this space for other than business. So if a taxpayer is using, definitely it should be business purpose. Let's say there are some guests, so can they use this portion for guest room? No, they cannot use for guest rooms. Or can they use for second living room? No, they cannot use. So that space should be exclusively for the purpose of business. So if taxpayer is using the space for other than business purpose, then it is not allowed. We cannot bifurcate how much portion is business and how much portion is personal. So splitting is not allowed. So mixed expenses cases, so these are the conditions to taxpayer have to meet. So how IRS will come to know? So whenever there is an audit, definitely they can find and they can. So we can generally claim at the time of filing the tax return. But these are the cases where at the time of audit, IRS will check all these aspects. Okay, and also this should be for business purpose. So this is basic condition. So yes, so this should be for business and it should be regularly and exclusively taxpayers should use. So then only they can claim as an expenses. If not, then they cannot claim. So let's say taxpayer using regularly, but there is no exclusive space for business. So they are using, they are running the business in the same, and there is no exclusive space for the purpose of business. So can we claim business portion expenses? So even though you are using the entire home for the purpose of business, but there is no exclusive space, right? So in this case, we cannot claim as an expenses. If there is no exclusive space, then no expenses, because they are not meeting the important rules for home office, right? So we cannot claim, right? Clear, Akash, this point?
Yes.
And also expenses under the accrual method. So we know there are two types of methods. So first method, which is cash method, and another one, accrual method, right? So what is cash method? So in case of cash method, and when we actually pay. So this is based on the payment. Accrual basis, do we need to check whether taxpayer actually paid or not? So if paid, then we can claim as an expenses in the cash method. So in the cash method, what we will see, whether whether taxpayer paid. If yes, then we can claim as an expenses. So in the accrual cases, do we need to check based on payment? No, we will not check whether taxpayer paid or not. It doesn't matter for the purpose of accrual. So accrual method, taxpayer either taxpayer may deduct or capitalize expenses, but he need to see two important conditions to claim as an expenses under accrual method. We need to see two conditions. So in cash method, only the condition whether they have actually paid or not. In the accrual, we need to see two conditions here. So if two conditions are meeting, then we can claim as an expenses under accrual method. So the first condition here is the all event test. All events test. So all event test means generally, you know, we need to determine the tax, we need to determine the liability. We need to determine the liability. So either, so this can be accuracy. So we need to uh, estimate the liability, which should be reasonable accuracy. We will see some example, then you have a clear idea. Reasonable accuracy. So then this is for this is for we need to determine the tax liability, that too with reasonable accuracy. If yes, then we are meeting requirement 1. So next requirement, which is requirement 2, which is economic performance. Economic performance. There should be economic performance. So what is economic performance here? So economic performance means generally business either sell the goods or business either provide these services, right? So in this case, it is an expenses. That means either taxpayer, either the business should receive the goods or should receive the services. So if yes, then we will say that taxpayer meeting with economic performance. So the economic performance condition here, so either taxpayer should receive the goods or services. If yes, then we are meeting with economic performance. So we economic performance should be done, and all event test means we are legally other party, so we amount to the creditor. So if yes, then we are meeting with all event test. And second one, either we should receive the goods or we should receive the services. So then economic performance condition also requirement also meeting. So if yes, if both conditions are meeting, then we can claim as an expenses. So this is in case of accrual method. Let's say there is a lawyer. There is a lawyer. Lawyer completed the legal work. lawyer completed the legal work for a business in December month and also bill $2,000 and business paid in January 2026. So this happened in 2020, paid in 2026, but the case happened in uh, December 2025. So when we can claim as an expenses in 2025 or 2026 based on this, cash method and accrual method. So here taxpayer is following accrual method. If it is cash, then we will claim as an expense in 2026. But if it is accrual, then we can claim deductible as an expenses in 25 or 26. So let's talk about first condition, all event tested. So did we, can we determine the liability here? So do we know the liability? Do we know the amount which we are supposed to pay? Do we know the liability? $2,000, right? So this is the amount. Is it reasonable accuracy? Yes. So this is the amount we already determined. So if yes, then if we know the amount, so we just need to see whether we can determine the amount reasonable accuracy cases. If yes, then we are meeting with all event test. So second one, economic performance. So when economic performance have done. So did we receive services in 25? All the legal work done in 25 itself, right? So did we receive these services in 25? Yes or no, guys? Guys, are you there?
Yes.
So did we receive the services?
Yes.
Yes, we received the services. So in this case, are we meeting these two conditions? All event test is nothing but liability. We should determine the liability, and economic performance test means either we should receive the goods or we should receive the services. If yes, then we can classify as an expenses under accrual method. So this is as simple as such. So let's say we need to only two questions. So question number one. So to consider as expenses in accrual method, question number one, do we owe it? Do we owe the amount? Yes. So this is question number one. The services are property. Did we receive the services are the goods are property? If yes, then we can claim as an expenses in the year in 2025 itself in this case. So we will not be saying about the payment. Payment can be done anytime. But if two conditions are meeting, then we can claim as an expenses in the same year. Okay, right?
Yes.
Yes. So next one, deductions where which is not allowed. So where deductions example, examples for deductions not allowed. There is a business, the business signed a contract in December. So there is a business, the business require some, cleaning services. So cleaning services they want. So for this, they have signed the agreement and cleaning happened in 2020. Cleaning happened in December. Cleaning happened in January 2026. And also, can we claim in 2025? So this is, we signed the agreement in 2025. And can we claim as an expenses in 2025 based on accrual method? Accrual method cases, can we claim here?
No.
No. Why? So we amount again
Oh, sir.
here, amount is $1,000. So we first condition under accrual method, all event test. So can we determine the amount liability? Yes, we can determine the liability. Second condition, economic performance. So when economic performance happened in 25 or 26?
26.
Economic
26.
performance happened in 26. So we cannot claim as an expenses in 2025. We can claim as an expenses in 2026 only, because for to claim as an expenses, so economic two conditions we need to meet. If no, then we cannot claim. Right? Make sense?
Yeah. Yes.
Yes. And there is small exception for this rule. So for accrual cases, accrual cases one thing. So first condition, liability. Can we able to liability? So can we able to at least able to estimate the liability? Yes. So if we can able to estimate the liability, then all condition test. And also second one, services or goods we should receive. Services are goods which we should receive. Goods are property. If you are meeting these two conditions, then we can claim as expenses under accrual method. So some exception for this. So there is one exception. Even though you are not receiving services or goods immediately, we can claim as an expenses in 2025 itself. But your first condition is mandatory. First one is mandatory, but second condition, we should receive goods or services or property. If yes, then we can claim as expenses. But for this, we have exception. The exception rule is first exception. First exception. um, so the economic performance happens shortly. So that should happen shortly after year end. If yes, then we can go with exception number. We can go with this exception, and we can claim as an expenses. So this is shortly. So what exactly it means? So here conditions, we have a couple of rules. So the first one, economic performance must occur by early of. So economic performance should happen in the same year generally, but there is an exception. So economic performance may occur earlier of 8.5 months. So 8.5, and 8.5 months, 8.5 months after the close of the year, after close of the year. So this is one rule. And second one are the date the taxpayer files a tax return. It can be including extension as well, including extension. So we need to see. So earlier of these two. So if the economic performance happened before 8 months after tax year, or taxpayer filing the tax return. So if yes, then we can claim as an expenses in 2025 itself. So why this condition? So here generally the rule is it should be recurring expenses. And recurring expenses cases generally, it may not the economic performance may not happen in the same year itself, because this is recurring, right? So recurring cases generally, these expenses will be there every year. So that's the reason there is small exception. So small exception for recurring expenses, right? Guys, getting this point? So, but the first condition should meet. So the liability should meet. So we must able to reasonable estimate the liability, and the services or goods we can receive later of earlier of 8 months after close of the tax year, or taxpayer filing the tax return. So whichever is earlier. Okay. So this must be recurring expenses. So this should be recurring expenses. And also next condition, for the business must treat the similar items consistently. So if you have any other expenses like similar expenses, we must follow the same treatment consistently. So then only which is allowed, the exception we can claim. And also this is if the item is, so condition number 5 here, the item should not be material. The item should not be material. Material means which should not be huge expenses. Recurring expenses will be pay huge amounts. No, right? So recurring expenses generally less amounts only. So that's the reason it should not be the material expenses. If yes, then we can claim, we can use these expenses. Let's say one example. Then you can connect all these dots and you can understand easily. The first example. Let's say there is a business. Business uses accrual method. Business using accrual method. And let's say on December 28th, 2025, on this day, business order some supplies to the business. So they require some supplies. So now the supplies delivered in 2026, and the amount is $1,000. Now tell me, can we claim the expenses in 25 or we can claim in 2026? So we need to see. So here again, one more point here. The business uses the supplies regularly, which is recurring. So this is recurring expenses only. So now tell me, when can we claim as an expenses, in 25 or 2026?
2025.
2025. Because of?
It is recurring expenses has been done on the end of a year.
Okay.
It is not a material.
Okay. So the economic performance. So economic performance can happen in the next year as well, but for that we need to see couple of conditions, right? So it should economic performance should happen before 8.5 months after end of the tax year. So when tax year will end? So tax year will end on December 31st. So from that we need to see 8.5 months. So the economic performance should happen from the 8.5 months from the date of year end. So if yes, then they can claim. So here we are getting the delivered in 2026 January. So Jan, so which is within 8.5 months or before filing the tax return. So when usually we'll file the tax return. So in case of individual tax return, so April 15th. In case of entities business, again, if it is partnership, then March 15th, right? So here the economic performance happened before these 2 days, these 2 dates, so we can claim as an expenses, and also this is 5 itself, right? Getting this point, guys? And also liability is fixed. So we are meeting, we know the all event test. So yes, so we are meeting all these conditions, so we can claim as an expenses. Yes, and also it is not a material. So here we need to see all these tests. So first one, economic performance happens shortly after the end of end earlier of these two, and also it should be recurring and it must be similar. So we must follow the same treatment for other business similar items consistently. So let's say 2025 we are following this method and 2026 we are not following. So can IRS be allowed? So no, we should follow consistently. And also item should not be material. If yes, then we can skip this. We can skip this rule. This service. I mean, economic performance rule we can skip and we can claim as an expenses in 2025. We no need to wait for 2026. Okay. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, and we can use this rule, but we cannot use this rule for few expenses, which are worker compensation. Workers compensation. So if it is worker compensation, like generally salaries. So in case of salary, even though it is regular, even though the performance happened in current year, so we cannot claim as an expenses in case of worker compensation. So worker compensation cases, we need to meet all the regular accrual basis rules. We cannot claim in expenses, and also any tort liabilities, tort liabilities. So these are expenses kind of, which are civil expenses. So injuries or any lawsuits or any legal liabilities. So which are related to civil, which are legal liabilities. So legal liability cases also we will not allow because legal liabilities which are not recurring, right? So that is actually the reason. And worker compensation, even though which is recurring and if it is fitting all the cases, but we will not claim as an expenses in case of worker compensation. Okay, right? Clear, guys, this one?
Yes.
Others? Vivek? Sri? Pratibha? Anaga?
Yes, Chair.
Yes, right. Okay. So, yeah, so that's it for today, guys. So we have covered few points in the unit 4 business expenses. So please let me know if you have any questions. If no, then we can wind up for today. Any questions, guys?
No, Chair.
No questions, right?
No.
Okay, then we'll see you in the next session. Have a nice day.